All right, so back for the second part of this, back to Coach Scioli and the fact that he would call us students. Plays a big role in the way that I coach now. So what I tell all my athletes before we start, training and whatnot, um, is I tell them that I'm not going to be there, for the rest of their lives while they're training. So I think it's really important that they learn how to um, almost to coach themselves in a sense and to coach each other. So I will show them pretty much everything that I know or anything that they question or ask. Like I always promote them that they ask me questions about anything and everything. Why are they doing this exercise? What muscles need to be activated during this exercise? Where, what if they're feeling this in one of those muscles that they're not supposed to? Like let's say they're deadlifting and their back is hurting. I tell them no, or like it's not supposed to be there. We need to make sure we use our glutes and our hamstrings, and we have to make sure we keep our scapulas, retraction and depressed, so we're in a nice tight position, lock your lats in kind of deal. And like I'll ask them questions all day when we're training. If you're doing a back bridge, do you feel it back in your hamstrings? Do you feel it in your glutes? And they'll say, oh, I feel it in my hamstrings, my low back. If we're just beginning or something like that. And I show them these. I guess we call them obstacles. I guess you can call them that, or barriers to correct form, um, so that they know the signs that will show them that they're not doing something correctly. And I see that as we develop in our programs, the athletes I have right now are great kids, so they know how to correct themselves. So if I'm working in a group, say I have two or three athletes at a time, and I'm working with one, and I look over and I see an athlete, doing something, and I see him stop mid rep, and they, check their form, they reset themselves, they get themselves good. I'll go over, I'll talk to them, say, hey, how'd you feel during that? How was it? They said, oh, it felt good, but I felt weird on one rep, so I'll stop and then I'll reset myself. And they understand what they're doing, which is perfect. And at that point, I let them go and do their thing. As I'm still, hovering around the floor and watching them, making sure they're doing their thing or telling them what their next exercise is. The fact that they could self-correct themselves is awesome because it shows me that when they go off on their own, if they're working out in the school with a team or on their own or at a buddy's house working out in the basement, wherever, or when they go to their colleges, they will know how to keep themselves safe at all times. That's the biggest thing. These kids, if they're going to be top tier athletes and elite athletes, if they're not healthy throughout the entire course of the season, then their talent is not being used. So safety is number one. Number two, getting strong. Number three is make sure they recover correctly. So I make sure all those bases are covered, especially like nutrition way, um, which is really cool. And sometimes the my favorite part of this is when my athletes will come over to like another one and they'll start talking about form or how they feel when they do certain movements, and I let it go. I'll sit back and be like, look at you guys, or I'll point it out and be like, look, you guys are literally coaching each other now. I still have to pinpoint things here and there, but to watch them start developing as young leaders and young coaches on their own is actually pretty cool to watch. It's a really nice development thing. So those are things that Coach Scioli had done for me. So thank you, Coach Scioli. We're going to move on to my next coach, which is Coach Bill Rabel, was one of my boxing coaches up here at Lock Haven. Now, Coach Rabel, just a little backstory. I only boxed for about 7 months, and Coach Rabel had invested a lot of time in me, and he had taken me to the national tournament within those 7 months, and I had earned an All-American title in that time, and I owe most of that to him. Um, he had taken a lot of extra time to talk with me and work with me and really help develop my skills as a boxer. And the biggest thing that I owe to him is solidify and reinforce your basic movements. So he was always on me about how I move, how is my jab, how is my cross, how is my hook. So with all the components of this foundational movement, which plays a role later on with a lot of stuff I'm involved with, is you need to master your basics. Without a doubt, you can, no matter what. Like I look at that, and I was involved in this sport for 7 months, and how did I make it as far as I did? because I stuck to my basics. There's nothing crazy. Same thing with lifting. You don't need to go crazy with different lifts. You know, stay with your basic movement patterns, reinforce them, make them stronger. So that was something that I am very um, passionate about. Is stay within your basics and then build on those, and then other outcomes will become better. Another thing was he was really big on learning from failure. So I remember we would always record our boxing matches and whatnot, and I remember he would sit down, he would watch film, and he would come in with an index card the following day after we had like a fight or something, or like a couple days later. I don't remember specifically, but there would be a little list on the card, and it would be certain things that you need to work on, certain basics like pivoting or uh, in and out movements, 1 2 out and then pivot around, and uh, he would always have little tasks for us to work on. It was never, the nice thing was, it was never degrading in any way. It was like, all right, look, you had a really nice job, you won your fight, that's great. Now, even though it's a win, let's still learn from that. Um, and I remember even when I lost matches, it was the same kind of thing. All right, well, you lost, now it's still a learning experience, so now we'll take that, take what we need to learn and evolve from that, and then move on to the next thing, which is I absolutely love that kind of way of coaching, and I do that with my athletes as well. Let's go check this lift out. You failed this lift, or you missed the lift at this weight. All right, or we're having trouble with getting the concept of this movement. Pause what you're doing, break it down to its simplest basic factors, and then once we solidify those basic movements, we start to, it's almost like building Legos. Um, you have this big complex design, and it's really hard to figure out how it works or whatever, so you break it down and you rebuild it piece by piece so that it's strong in its foundation, and then you have it evolve and grows and it gets bigger. And what I'm thinking is like for a 5-10-5 or a pro agility drill I do with my athletes, I show a 45-degree run. It's very awkward at first. Like it's very different concept with hip disassociation from lower and upper body, and the motion can get very frustrating at times because it's very unnatural type of movement. We're so used to being so linear, and to have our hips at a 45 degree, as our upper body is moving in a different direction, can be a little bit goofy. So we break it down and we learn these concepts, and as soon as those concepts become more fluent, those motor patterns or motor pathways become stronger, it becomes more second nature, and it becomes a lot smoother. And then over time, speeds get faster, times get cut down. It's a really nice way to develop more complex movements by just breaking them down, slowing everything down and breaking them down. Instead of getting frustrated about it, we just break it down and take it from there. One thing that's really cool what Coach Rabel showed me is it's always good to joke around. Don't get so don't get so intense with everything. Yes, it's great to have that intensity, but him and Coach Coop were always a bunch of goofballs, man. Like when we weren't in intense training, if it was like we're at a tournament, or we're at a show, something like that, they're always the first two to start cracking jokes, and really lighten the mood and keep everyone's spirits up. So I like to do that within my training for my clients as well, is talk a little junk, have fun, joke around. So that was another thing I feel like really helps. Everything doesn't have to be always, so perfection, and then you got to get mad at yourself because it's not right yet. Becoming a top tier athlete or elite athlete does not happen overnight. It's development, having fun, and learning. So I'm going to pause this. We're going to go to a part 3 because I don't want my phone to shut me off again, so I'll be right back.